I'd like to call the Tuesday, February 11th, 2020 meeting of the Middleton Board of Selectmen to order. I'd like to remind people in the audience that this is being photographed, and by staying in the room, you agree to have your picture taken as well as your voice recorded. So let's go to our warrant number 2017.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On warrant 2017, on the payroll side, we have $683,586, and on bills payable, $3,186,035. The lion's share of that is the Masco assessment at the bottom of the sheet at $2,492,000. Also in there for purchase of power for MELD, $147,642. A cruiser for the police department at $33,264. And then in the middle of the page, the normal payroll deductions in the amount of $89,268. Sarah Wood has reviewed this and asks the board's affirmative vote.
Any questions for Mr. Sheehan? If any, do I have a motion?
Move to accept as presented.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed unanimously. We'll now go on to the minutes. We have minutes of January 28th, 2020, and executive sessions of both December 17th and January 14th. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes?
Move to accept as written.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. It passes unanimously. The town administrator update and report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of things for tonight. There is information, the board's supplemental information that we passed out tonight about early voting. That begins on the 24th of February. That's for the Massachusetts presidential primary, which is on March 3rd. Early voting runs for 1 week for this election. Generally follows the town clerk's normal hours, so Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, it is 9 to 4. Friday is 9 to 1. Tuesday is the one outlier, 9 in the morning until 8 at night, and that will be at the Flint Public Library. We took bids this week, or actually last week, excuse me, for the Maple Liberty Street intersection reconstruction. We bid that initially last summer, and the project came in, or the bids came in way over what we had, what our engineers had estimated. So they suggested that we not issue a contract and that we rebid it in the wintertime. It ended up coming in about $60,000 cheaper than the last time, so it certainly worked to our advantage. Still came in a bit above the above the estimated price, but it came in at $407,000. We have if you recall, we have a complete streets grant from the state for $172,000, and then we'll make up the balance with Chapter 90 funds for the rest of that project. So our engineers, World Tech, are reviewing the documents now, making sure everything is according to Hoyle, and then we'll go ahead and we'll issue a contract once we get the okay from them. Tomorrow night is a meeting of the Master Development Planning Committee, and that will be here at Fuller Meadow, but across the hall in the cafeteria. We'll be looking at we'll have cost estimates from HKT. At that time, the way that the project was cost estimated is a sort of a la carte approach. So each component will have a price tag, and then they've sort of bundled like pieces or pieces that would normally go together to give a picture of what we'll be looking at for the town meeting in March. So that's at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, the 12th of February. The town meeting is March 24th. That will be at the Howe Manning School at 7 p.m. Between now, or between tomorrow and March 24th, we'll be out and about meeting with various boards and committees to present the project to them and try to build support. Hopefully meeting with homeowners associations. In the past, I've met with the Ferncroft Tower residents and Fuller Pond, so we'll probably have some meetings like that. And we do have a couple of meetings scheduled for this building and for the library. I believe we have a couple there. So we'll make sure that the information on the website is up to date. So the Master Development Planning Committee has done a really good job of getting their arms around that project and around that site. It's in many respects harder to plan a project on a 52-acre greenfield than it is, on a 5-acre piece where you've got parameters that are sort of imposed on you. So I give them a lot of credit for the work that they've done. Obviously, they received a lot of help from HKT and Par Corporation, Abacus, and Hammer Walsh. That's the rest of the consulting team. And then finally, we're continuing on with our budget development process. We had our meeting 2 Saturdays ago to kick off the budget process. Next meeting is on March 7th. That will be a combination of the continuation of the operating budget as well as the capital budget, which will be sort of the primary focus of that. We're in the process of meeting with departments now to go over capital requests, while also fine-tuning the operating side of things. So information continues to trickle in, and Sarah is continuing to fine-tune that as time goes on and more information becomes available. So, and there is, I'll draw to your attention, in the information we handed out tonight, there is a memorandum from the Board of Assessors for a supplemental request that didn't make it in earlier. I would suggest that we talk about that on either at the next regular meeting if you want to, or perhaps more appropriately at the March 7th meeting when the finance committee is there. And that is what I've got for tonight for updates.
Great. Any questions for Mr. Sheehan? For those at home, we have our public comment period. We don't have anybody there, but I just like to remind people that if you have something that you want to bring before the selectmen and you don't want to have on a regular call up beforehand and just want to get off your chest, it's not something we discuss, it's something you get to say and we listen to, but you can show up and we'll give you 2 minutes and I'll put your name on the list. But tonight we have nothing, so we're going to move on to we're going to skip our next agenda item for a second and just go to our number 4, which is to vote on the application of Ismail Sherda of Alba Auto for a Class 2 used car dealer's license with no on-site storage of vehicles, working out of his home residence at 48 Liberty Street. How are you, sir? Tell us a little bit what you're planning on doing and...
Overseas. I've been in this business for 30 years. I used to work for Audi in Burlington for many years. And I want to ship the car overseas, so I have the option, this one, to get a license to pay the taxes. And it's going to be, my business is going to be online.
Mostly buy it from the auto auctions type of?
Yeah, from auto auction.
All right,
So no local sales?
No, definitely not.
okay. Any questions? All right, do I have a motion?
Move to approve the application of Ishmael Shurda of Alba Auto for a Class 2 used car license with no on-site storage of vehicles at 48 Liberty Street.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second, do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, passed unanimously. Well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And if you go to the town hall in the next couple of days, they'll have your license ready and pay the fee or whatever.
Probably have it for you tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go back to our previous agenda item, which is a presentation of the Tri-Town Council Annual Report by Meredith Shaw et al. And others, Executive Director.
Thank you, yes, thank you. Happy to be joined by Middleton's own Michaela McGee. She's a freshman at Masco, and she's one of our youth volunteers. So I want to thank her for coming with me tonight. And I'm sorry that my pictures aren't visible, but I shared the slideshow with you because, as I said, pictures speak a thousand words, right? And I have a lot of really great photos to share with you. But I do want to thank you for inviting us here tonight to speak. I've been the executive director for about 6-ish months now, replacing the fabulous Lisa Teichner, who served Tri-Town families and youth for over a decade as executive director, and I had the privilege of being able to work alongside her for the last 6 years as a coalition coordinator and then a youth coordinator. So appreciate her contributions to our organization and to the youth and families in the Tri-Town. Want to thank you for your continued financial support of our work at Tri-Town Council. If we look at all of the municipal funding contributions annually, it's about 25% of our budget. And because of the town's support, we are able to do a lot of the programming and community education. So we're always grateful for your support. We kicked off, I'm here really I know the annual report was quite comprehensive, and we had some photos in there in addition to a lot of prose around what we had done in fiscal year 19. But I'm here really to just talk about the last 6 months and some of the new developments and some of the programming that we've done. And Michaela is here to talk a little bit about one of the programs that she participated in as a youth volunteer. So I will start just by sharing that we kicked off our year with a new website, tritowncouncil.org. It was newly redesigned and it streamlined our resources and our programming events and just easier to navigate. So we were thrilled that we were able to do that. We bid adieu to our fabulous former executive director, Lisa Teichner, and we honored her by creating the Lisa G. Teichner Speaker Series, which is something that we'll do every year, where we'll invite, 1 or 2 times a year, a speaker to do some community education in the Tri-Town. And this past year, we were fortunate enough to invite Lynn Lyons, who is an expert on anxiety. She resides up in Concord, New Hampshire, but she's actually nationally recognized. She's an author. She's in a lot of communities now. She's been in the Tri-Town a few times now, and we brought her in when her star was really beginning to rise, as we started to get concerned about youth anxiety, and so she was very well received. And then we were able to kick off our Tech Talk series this year with a speaker, Carrie Gallagher, who was our second Lisa G. Teichner Speaker Series speaker, where she was talking about positive parenting in the digital world. So we've done a lot of community education with these 2 program series on mental health and on technology and balance. Mental health is going to continue to be a focus in our programming and in our community education, as we've done in the past through a generous grant from the Tower Foundation. And I brought a flyer with me here today. We're able to offer youth mental health first aid to any caring adult who works with adolescents. We offer it twice a year, and we have a youth mental health first aid program coming up in the spring. So you're all invited. It's a free training provided by the Tower Foundation. What else? We are in the process of offering some stress reduction workshops and mindfulness workshops for teens. That's something that we haven't offered recently, so we're looking forward to that. And we're also partnering with Adam Thurlow and Alexis Costas over at Masco. They're the Masco Middle School Adjustment Counselors. And in response to the mental health and technology programming that we've been offering, Adam and Alexis wanted to do follow-up parent conversations to sort of be the next step, or what's next. After parents or caring adults come to these programs, oftentimes there's more that you want to talk about. So Adam and Alexis, in partnership with TTC, have been able to provide those opportunities. And actually the follow-up to our teen depression workshop parent conversation was this evening. So good things are happening. We also were able, and I hope for those of you that are Middleton residents, I hope you got this in your mailboxes. This was a new initiative this year, our Youth Health and Safety Guide, that we were able to publish and mail to all residential addresses in the Tri-Town. And really the intention behind that guide was to really compile all of our resources in one source, and hopefully, a lot of families, a lot of adults, tucked those, on the bulletin board or on the coffee table, because it's filled with information around really who we are as an organization, positive youth development, caring relationships, the importance of supporting young people, and then some information, about substance use, some information about screen time and helping, support kids in managing social media, et cetera, et cetera. So that was something that we were excited to launch. We hosted a community conversation a couple of weeks ago, and the best part about that event, it was something we do every other year where we present the YRBS data, the Youth Risk Behavior Survey data that we collect in collaboration with Masco's School Health Advisory Council. We presented it to the community. It's sort of the last stop in our YRBS roadshow, we like to call it. We often will come to our stakeholder committees, and then we end with a community conversation. And what was special about that community conversation was it's the first year that our Youth Action Advisory Board, which is a group of high school students that are the youth voice of our Substance Use Prevention Coalition, it was the first year that they presented the data to the community. So that was really awesome. And it was filmed, so once we get the link from Boxford Cable Access, we'll be sure to share it, on our social media pages and in our newsletter. But what the young people did, they were actually the first group to see the raw data back in March. We did a data party with teens, and actually teens came to our data party, which was great. We had 20 teens come. Some were our Youth Action Advisory Board members. Others were high school students that wanted to earn some community service hours or were interested. So the kids looked at the data in March, and then in the fall, we said to our Youth Action Advisory Board, okay, so here are your buckets. We've got social media, we've got protective factors, we've got technology, we've got, well, actually technology and social media are together. We've got mental health, and we've got substance use. You look at the YRBS report and you pick out what you think people would want to know. So we gave them some structure, but gave them some room within that structure to say, what kind of data points do you think are going to spark good conversations, or what data points are going to spark needed conversations in the community? So that community conversation and their presentation was a reflection of that. So we were really happy about that. So for the community conversation, the second part after the data presentation was adults and youth sitting together, having some conversations about the data, about what it's like to be a teen in the Tri-Town, about what their concerns are, about what their hopes are, about what they heard. So we'll be doing a lot more with what was generated from that community conversation. Just another thing that is just an opportunity I just wanted to share, and I know we've probably talked with you before about positive community norms, where we look at our data that we collect and we say, okay, what we notice is, yes, we collect use rate data around vaping and marijuana and alcohol use. We also collect non-use data, but that's often not what we talk about. So one thing that we've been doing as an organization the last several years is we've been trying to promote those positive norms of non-use. So I just have some information that I'll share with you, and this was part of what our young people talked a lot about at the community conversation, but we have these buttons, and I'll just share them. So the buttons say 84% don't, more. They love to talk to you. And then here's just a bit of information. With marijuana being legal, there's a lot of concern about youth use, and really, in good faith, there should be concern. What we know about marijuana use is that kids don't think it's dangerous. They don't think it's a big deal. They think it's natural. So we looked at our marijuana numbers and said, okay, well, we've got 16% of our youth tell us that they've used in the past 30 days. But wait a second, let's look at that other side of the coin, and let's look at the non-use. And that's where we looked at 84% have not used. So, all right, oh, you haven't. So this is just a button campaign that we're doing, and as our supporters and stakeholders, we invite you to push back if you hear any misperceptions about the decisions our youth are making, to push back and say, well, actually, most youth don't use. Most youth are making healthy decisions. And one thing that we always are mindful of when talking about our data and talking about youth norms is that it's always a balance between hope and concern, right? lot of concern that we want to keep our kids safe, we want them to make healthy decisions, and we do know that there are some youth that are not making healthy decisions, along with the hope that most kids are. So it's always a balance of those two things. So that's just a little bit about our community conversation and some of our data. Oh, and Michaela's going to talk about, she's going to talk about when she catches her breath. Are you sneezing?
No, I'm coughing.
Oh, no. We're continuing to grow and innovate around our youth programming and tending partnerships with, yeah.
Okay.
Aw. And tending partnerships with other organizations in the Tri-Town as well as in our region. One of the things that we always love to highlight is that we have these Girls for Girls and Boys for Boys mentoring programs that serve over 100 Tri-Town youth. So that's grown exponentially since 2015, I think, when we started with 20 girls in Topsfield. So good things grow, we like to say. And we recently had a middle school youth night with our regional partner at the Danvers YMCA, which we had our YAB kids lead, and a few of our middle school youth attended. It was a small gathering, but we figure you got to plant the seeds, right? And then we've got enrichment programs that will continue. We're hosting Camp Invention again in the summertime at Fuller Meadow, and we've worked with Kevin Huston over the summer to put on the Lego programs. He's a great partner to us, Kevin at Howell Manning. And then we've got our Photo Voice program, which May 8th is our exhibit. That's a program where youth learn about photography, and they take they choose a photograph and then create some text around it, and it always centers around a theme. And this year's theme is Take a Stand, and Michaela is a Photo Voice participant. But I wanted to turn it over to Michaela. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. To talk about one of our 2 capstone events each May. We have our all-night grad party where we host our seniors for a night of fun. And for the last several years, we've done a 6th grade fun night where we bring all of the youth in the Tri-Town to Masco. And Michaela can tell you more about that, about 6th grade fun night. Yeah, she's been our volunteer. Yeah.
What I did?
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
Basically, you have a group of high school students, some middle school, who come in and help the incoming 7th graders, show them around, play games with them, put them in little groups, and they go off and we did like a little scavenger hunt. That was pretty fun. They have to like go around and try to find it. And they teach you how to open your school lock, which is kind of hard, but get the hang of it. You go, isn't there like an open gym too, where you can go at the end and play games, and then they gather back in, and it's a lot of fun.
Do you teach them how to make sure you keep the lock locked so nobody flips the lock?
Is that part of the training?
It should be a good part of the training. I'll tell you, I mean, I've had, my last is going through Masco now, and the work that you guys have done for the incoming 7th graders prior to alleviate what is a really anxious-driven transition of, I remember with both of my kids, how am I going to know where to go, you know, where they've spent the last 6 years sitting in a single classroom with all of 1 or 2 teachers. And I know both the activity that happens now and then previously, I think you still do, where you bus students in, you guys pay for the transportation and other activities, to spend a day or at least a couple of hours on the campus and get to know it before they walk in the fall is a huge piece. To make it fun, and learn from students that have already done it and realize that it's actually not that scary and it's pretty exciting, but also to be there to kind of mentor them.
I still have nightmares, I can't find my locker.
I know,
It's
right?
funny how that's, when you're a kid, that's the most important thing. It was like, where's that? That's a big school. How do I know where my locker is? Do I leave my books there? Is my lock on right? Did it put, what are the numbers? It's just, it's funny. Those are the little things that would make a difference between a good experience and
absolutely. Yeah, middle school's tough, right?
I still lose I don't even know where my locker is most of the time still. I'm just I don't know.
Oh, because you made the transition,
Yep.
you're a freshman now, yeah.
7th grade year, I had to go ask for my locker combination, I think, 10 times.
Part of it,
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, so that's good to hear, because that really is the intention of the fun night. And there is a video in the slideshow that one of our student interns made last year, Caitlin Kim, who's is a Middleton resident. I think she went to school in the city. Just to give you a flavor of what the night is about, and then busing the kids over on the campus during the school day. But that whole night originated with a group of high school kids a few years ago saying, you know what, exactly what you said. Wouldn't it be nice if we could just help take the edge off for a lot of 6th graders going into 7th grade? So, yeah. So Michaela was one of our youth volunteers that helped plan the activities. You know, we offered the structure, and then the youth decided to do a scavenger hunt. We had a photo booth. We had games. We had some STEM activities. You know, I think it was like build the tallest tower out of marshmallows and toothpicks, or
Oh, yeah.
build a structure that will hold your shoe out of marshmallows and toothpicks. So each year it's a little different, depending on the youth that volunteer with us. But I think last year we had, almost 40 youth volunteers. The Masco baseball team came in to help us as well. So, yeah. So,
That's gotta be a good thing too, because when you're in junior high, there's nothing scarier than high school students, so you can actually see someone, a smiling face, someone that helps you, and
yeah, and welcoming you and playing with you and doing some small group activities with you, trying to make it easier. Yeah, that's the hope.
I
So-
remember one year when I did 6th grade my stuff one night, we had to put a lifesaver on our elbow and try to get it through the whole line. That didn't go well.
Yeah, it's all those activities, right? To be a little silly, to let your guard down a little bit, so, yeah. So that's just a snippet of where we're at now, and again, we thank you for inviting us here just to talk a little bit about our work, and appreciate your support and your connecting us within your network and being our ambassadors to the work we do. So we're grateful. We are on social media, so I will, in the slideshow, we have a connection. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook now. And I also just wanted to share one more flyer, something, again, trying to elevate youth voice. We're entering into a strategic planning process, and we're inviting teens to come and talk with us about, what it's like to be a teen in the Tri-Town, because it'll just inform our work. The youth have an important voice in the process. So, one other seed I just wanted to plant while I'm here, and I'll hand out this information sheet. So as you well know, we have the Project Safety Net helpline, which is a resource line. It's 24/7. It's staffed by one of our counselors that we have a connection with, and we get a few calls each year. Sometimes more often than not. But something that we've been hearing a lot, and I know you're well aware of the concern around mental health. But something we hear a lot is how challenging the process for finding mental health professionals to support a family member or a youth or an adult who needs some support around some counseling or some therapy. And I know that there are resources in the Tri-Town. We've got our community resource guide that the School Health Advisory Council put together that has, the Leahy Behavioral Health Services and whatnot. But what we've learned in talking with our regional partners is about this interface mental health resource and referral line. And there's some information on this sheet. And essentially what it is it is it's not a hotline, it's a telephone information line that towns subscribe to. And if you're a resident of a town that has a subscription to this service, you're able to use it, anytime that you need it. It is staffed just 9 to 5, but so it's not an emergency line. But essentially what it is it's a resource for folks to call when they need some help finding a mental health professional. Because often what you'll hear is, a family member or a person is looking for help and it's really hard to find it. You have to call 50 different numbers. You have to reach out to a variety of mental health professionals, some in your area, some not in your area. Often takes a while to, first of all, get a call back or to be seen. So this is a resource that not only will connect a caller with a mental health professional, but they follow up with the caller to make sure that the matches that they provided were fruitful. And if they weren't fruitful, they'll offer some more resources and some more names to the folks that are in need. And this line not only checks to make sure that the practitioner is accepting new patients, it also checks to make sure that the practitioner accepts the insurance that you hold, as well as is the expert in the area that you're in need of. So it's just something that we're looking at. We've talked to the interface folks, had some preliminary conversations. This is something that our Substance Use Prevention Coalition has talked about quite a bit this year, and we are able to negotiate a tri-town rate for membership. So that's something that we're working on. So I just wanted to share this information for
Do
you.
you have a ballpark idea what that rate would be?
I do, yes. So we talked to them in the fall. And typically, for one municipality, it's $13,000 per year, and they require a 2-year commitment. For the tri-town, we negotiated a rate of $22,000 for Topsfield, Boxford, and Middleton. It would be a 2-year. It would be a 2-year commitment, so it would be $44,000. Like I said, we're still, researching and sort of planting seeds and talking to different stakeholder groups about this service to try to determine if it's something that we think, that we could get some buy-in around subscribing to. And there are several communities in our area. Wakefield uses it. Linfield just picked it up over the summer. Winchester, a lot of different communities use it. So it's something that I just wanted to share with you, and there's more information on these sheets.
Thank you.
So.
Any questions from the board?
Just one more question on the interface. Is this something that you all are determined to see if you can fulfill within your budget process?
So that's what we have to figure out. A Tri-Town Council, in our preliminary conversations that we've had as a coalition and as a staff, it's not something that we could absorb right now. We could potentially write a grant to have that 2-year funding, but we have to do some research as to what grants might be a fit for this kind of service.
Do you know how Linfield funded it?
I don't know how Linfield funded it. I can ask, because we have a connection with their coalition coordinator, Peg Saladay. I think they may have gotten a grant, but I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All righty. Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you and have an update.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Michaela, for
Michaela.
coming here and doing what you do. I know it's not always easy to get up in front of a group of old folks like us to talk about what you're doing in school, but thank you for actually standing up and supporting your fellow classmates and making sure your voice is heard. Appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Thanks.
Good night.
All right, our next agenda item is the discussion of the transfer station operations and financing, including implementation of additional fees.
So, we were gonna have this conversation anyways, but it sort of came up as we were talking about the transfer station operation during the February 1st budget meeting. And just the need to take a look at our solid waste operation. There's been, we've talked about it a couple of times, there's been a lot of changes, and there are a lot of changes ongoing in the solid waste industry, both on the trash end of things and on the recycling end of things. The model that, I guess you call it the model that we have now, doesn't cover our costs of operation. So we bring in about $192,000 in fees through the sale of stickers, but the total operation is about $436,000. So we're covering less than half of the operation with our fee structure, and so that leaves the balance to be picked up by the by the taxpayers under the operating budget. So the purpose tonight is not to come up with a final direction or a final solution, but to work toward a direction and begin a discussion on the various approaches. We've got a little more than a year to sort of figure this out. Things will get significantly more difficult for us beginning in July of 2021. So we wanted to get going on this and begin that conversation, start to sort of throw some stuff against the wall and see if it sticks or not. So we've been in touch with DEP. Paul Goodwin and Kenny Gibbons and I met with DEP last week about some of the programs that they have, some of the assistance that they can provide. They immediately directed us to a couple of different grants that we're going to put in for. One dovetails really nicely with a conversation that we had a couple of months ago, and Brian, I think you talked about additional signage or improved signage at the transfer station. One of the grants would help us with public education and everything from signs at the station to flyers and mailings, potentially mailings and things like that. And then the other is a technical assistance grant that would help us to explore additional approaches. So, like I said, we've got over a year to figure it out, but we don't want to wait till this time next year. So, in terms of the market, the changes to the market, there's a couple of things at play. And there was a pretty comprehensive article in the Sunday Boston Globe a few weeks ago about the changes to solid waste management in general. A lot of it is driven from changes in the recycling market. It used to be that China was the welcoming dumping ground for the world's recycled products. They take glass, paper, cardboard, you name it. They needed it for what they were doing over there. That has changed. They no longer want to be the world's dumping ground, and so they have changed their essentially their contamination requirements is really what it comes down to. And so that has shut that market down to us for our recycling. So we used to be, as recently as a few years ago, we were getting paid or getting credited for certain recycled products. Now we're paying, in some cases, more for recycling than we are for solid waste. And obviously that's not.
One of the things that would be helpful in the trash and recycling comparison document you put together, if we could get a shot at looking at, the last couple of years, let's say 17, 18, 19 fiscal years, of what the cost was to dispose of the tonnage and trash, and what the cost has been on the 631, 612, and 613 tons of recycling, to get a handle on that as we figure out both what we're going to do overall with our approach to trash and recycling, but more specifically as we approach the renegotiation of our tipping fees.
Okay, we can certainly do that.
And I don't know if it's possible, but to break it down by the type of recycling. So, I mean, if cardboard costs this, glass costs that, and, I don't know if we have that level of detail, but that might also be helpful.
Okay, we can look at that.
Understanding that fluctuates over time. I'm sure back in 2011, we were probably making money on our cardboard. In 2019, we were probably costing us money to dispose of the cardboard.
Yeah. So when I said that that we've got a year, the contract that we have with Covanta for the disposal of our trash runs out at the end of fiscal year 2021, which is June 30th of 21. In The year leading up to that, we'll be paying $75 per ton to get rid of trash at Covanta. We're at $72.60 or something like that now. We expect the cost per ton to go from $75 to $90, which is a 20% increase. That's being driven by environmental requirements and, more importantly, by just a shrinking pool of options for disposal. So there are two primary incinerators in this area, one at Covanta, the other at Wheelabrator. Wheelabrator is very close to capacity, so it becomes a less viable option for us. So, and these again are issues that are affecting communities of all size throughout Massachusetts and really throughout the country. So, the underlying assumption that we've made, and I suppose I should have started with this, is that we want to continue to provide a solid waste service for the residents. We're not required to in Massachusetts. There are a few towns, not many, a couple of dozen, I think, that do not provide any solid waste service. I think Rowley is the only one in this area that does not. Everybody is on their own to find a hauler to pick up curbside, or they can. I think they could bring it to the facility in Georgetown, maybe. But that's our underlying assumption. We haven't heard anything that says we should get out of the trash business altogether. I often joke about conversations like this that would, probably be the last official act if I made a recommendation like that. So, if I'm misreading that, feel free to disabuse me of that. So,
One of the things I'm trying to get my arms around is why just based on the numbers you were throwing out there, 75 to 90,000, we're looking about another $30,000 a year, at least on year one, additional costs for trash. Not a huge amount, but it adds up over time. Secondly, I'm just trying to get my arms around why the pretty large fluctuation in trash from year to year.
Particularly in that
Well,
average. Yeah.
what would be helpful there is if we had the number of primary stickers.
Yeah.
So then we can, look at, tons per sticker. And that, may not fluctuate as much as the gross number, depending on how many stickers.
And I'd also like to look at the same time, the number of recycling-only stickers during that period. Part of me is saying is from FY '09 to FY '19, we've seen almost 200-ton increase in recycling. Is that because people are being smart and pulling their recycling out of their trash that they're actually dropping off at the transfer station compactor, or are we seeing a significant increase in our recycling due to the recycling-only stickers?
Yeah, and the recycling-only stickers, we used to just give them away. We didn't really track it because we don't charge for it. I don't think I brought that with me.
Well, they should have numbers on them, I would assume.
Yeah, I don't know if they did before 2017. So in fiscal year 17, we handed out 302 of them. This year, we're at 320. We were up at 350 last year. So it hasn't fluctuated too much. But there is a little bit of variance, but, there's not a clear pattern in any of this. And you're right about the trash. Trash is generally on the decline, but then you've got these sort of odd spikes in there, as you can see in that. Paul actually put that.
Yeah, FY '19 was a big spike.
Yeah. And it's hard to know, and the recycling number didn't change too much. So.
It is some of that by the calendar, or, is this tonnage calculated by when it's hauled
Yeah.
to the facility?
Right, so there's that bit of variance.
it's not based on the chargeback, like, is there some recyclables within that trash number that we're gonna lose because they separate it? They're separating it at the facility, and, because I'm looking at, there's a big difference in the tonnage for just the trash.
Yeah.
In that thing. I was just wondering, how do we get that number? Is that in the front end of us driving it over there, or is that how they bill us?
I think that's in the delivery, depending on when we deliver.
Okay. So if someone were to be recycling better, we might possibly, that could be a result of why
Correct.
that number went up.
I actually think a lot of that is, I think there's a increase in recycling-only stickers as some folks are doing their own private pay curbside pickup,
Yeah.
where some of the pickup folks aren't providing recycling, or it's a single stream there. Secondly, as the number of condos that continue to grow in town, 55 and older, where by law, their trash is required to be picked up as part of their condo association. We've consistently opened up our recycling to that population at no cost to them, that I think may be driving some of that recycling as well. And
So,
I'd just like to get my arms around what we think. If we think that our tipping fees are gonna go up to 90 starting FY '22, what do we think our costs on recycling, and I know a lot of that is throwing a dart at a board.
Right.
But, I mean, we all agree that China's not opening up their markets anymore to this, and at some point, it's gonna be recycled material that's gonna just end up in a landfill, like the rest of our trash is, and which is gonna be a cheaper alternative.
yeah, and it's forcing some creativity, some rethinking of approaches. A few towns have set up crushers for glass, and so they're taking in glass product, crushing it, and using that for road base, which is a way to keep it out of the waste stream. But it's, it's fairly labor intensive. You have to, because there's so few of them, you have to truck it further than just to bring it to OPR.
The transfer station up where my property is in Maine, they split cardboard from other paper, and they even go further on their glass is split a certain way there.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is to try to capitalize on those areas where there's still some market left. And some of those materials are actually being recycled elsewhere rather than where we bring it all to one place.
Yeah, and Middleton is fortunate that we never went to single stream, so we don't just dump everything into the same.
Well, our fee wouldn't be $90 a ton, that's for sure.
Yeah, but on the recycling end, it at least preserves some flexibility or some benefit. One of the problems is that when you get glass mixed in with paper, there's contamination, and that lowers the value of what a collection place would give you for it. So we're fortunate that we do separate. There's always opportunity to do further. Space is not unlimited though, and so that's some of the drawbacks or some of the challenges. One of the things we are looking at doing is, and this will dovetail with the educational component, is trying to divert some of the waste away from the trash stream. So we're looking at bulk items. Bulk items is really one of the things that we'll talk about, is adding a charge for bulk items, so sofas and oversized chairs and mattresses, things like that, because those just take up a lot of space in the truck. But other things that we can potentially divert from the waste stream: compost, food wastes, that kind of stuff. Textiles is a big thing because it obviously is quite absorbent, and so that just adds weight to your load. So we're looking at ways that we can do that. That's where the technical assistance from the DEP, I think, will come in.
Well, if people have textiles that they want to get rid of, there are 3 recycling bins at Masco that, benefit, the, one of the clubs at
Okay,
Masco.
yep.
So it's a way of, getting it out of the waste stream and helping, one of our youth clubs.
Yeah, yeah, and those are good things to link together, just as the, nickel can and bottle collection can be helpful.
So the last thing would be helpful to understand, and some of this might be anecdotal, and I'm a big fan of Swap Shop. I think that has kept a lot of stuff out of us trash stream, but many times I see things get put in the Swap Shop that very clearly in about a day or two is going to end up in the trash stream.
Right.
And that doesn't magically lift itself up and bring it into the trash stream. It's done by the staff that are there. So, I think I would by no way ever want to get rid of the Swap Shop, but I think we should listen to the Public Works Director and staff there, better understand what are some of the things that are coming in there and what are the things that come in there and really shouldn't be in there. I've seen folks drop furniture off in front of the Swap Shop on a Saturday that really shouldn't have been in the Swap Shop. That is, it's broken, it's whatever, that
Yeah.
ends up being at some point in the compactor.
Right, right, and that's an issue that is always going to exist to some degree, but we do want to try to get our arms around that a little bit better. So, in terms of options that we're looking at, I mentioned bulk items. That's one where it would make sense to include a fee for that. We did increase the sticker fee last year, and I don't think it would make sense to increase that again. It does merit taking a look at whether we should charge a fee just for recycling, and I know that there's sort of two ways to look at that. And again, I'm not asking the board for any decisions tonight. Just want to toss this out there and get the conversation started so we can kind of roll through this. You can always run solid waste as an enterprise fund, so that you're collecting fees to offset the full cost of operation. That would be a pretty dramatic increase. I didn't look it up. We did a quick analysis of that when we looked at the fee last year. We went from 100 to 125. I think we would have needed to go north of $200 a sticker in order to cover our costs, and obviously that was not not palatable at that point, and I wouldn't suggest that now. But there are a number of sort of interim steps or partial steps that we could take. Pay-as-you-throw is an option, where you have a sticker fee, but then you also have bags that, all trash has to come in within a bag. Often you can reduce the sticker fee when you incorporate pay-as-you-throw. I know that Rockport did that when I was living in Acton. Acton did that. They went from about $200 a sticker to, I think, $100. And then they made up that revenue with the pay-as-you-throw bag. So those are opportunities. Then we talked briefly, I think, on Saturday about the potential for outsourcing the whole operation. Benefit of that is we get rid of the capital component of it, and the biggest capital piece of this operation is the truck that we use to haul the trash, and that's about a $200,000 vehicle. But again, it gets back into that issue of, in order to bring somebody in, it has to be profitable for them. We're either gonna pay them out of the general fund, or we're gonna give them carte blanche to set rates in order to recover all of their costs, which again brings us up to a pretty significant number on.
Unless there's a hybrid where we're actually outsourcing the hauling
Correct.
rather
Right.
than outsourcing the overall operations and
Yeah.
management. So, I mean, a couple of things that I think that we should discuss during this budget cycle is bulk items. I think I agree with you that the overall sticker fee after last year's increase shouldn't be addressed this period. I mean, we need to get our arms around what FY '22 is gonna look like, and, you know, at some point, if there isn't gonna be an outsource, which is likely the case, we're gonna have to come up either in '22 or at the latest '23 with a significant increase to purchase a new vehicle.
Right.
A new hauling truck there as well, I would say. We've been half-heartedly kind of replacing some of the containers there that are starting to look a wee bit rotted. And we've kind of been piecemeal, doing some updating for the facility. I think we have to come up with a whole plan on this that may need some level of real investment, upfront investment, to get it to where it needs to be. But I think the bulk items should be addressed during this cycle. I mean, we made a decision a couple of years ago to start charging a fee for televisions. And lo and behold, the volume of televisions plummeted. I think part of the problem was we were somehow collecting televisions that were coming from outside of Middleton. You know, I don't think they were showing up on the side of the road, or they were sneaking a TV into their trash barrel and dumping it into the compactor. And, you know, when I go there on a Saturday or Sunday, I see the large number of furnitures and others that get set aside that later that week, the staff there manage either breaking it up or putting it into the compactor. And it'd be helpful to see what some of the other towns that have centers similar to us, what they're doing on some of these bulk fees and items, and if any of these are actually able to be recycled. For example, I know you're seeing a lot of that happening with box springs and mattresses.
Right.
Great, okay, so we'll keep
Yeah,
this-
we'll-
keep this on the agendas.
Yeah, we'll do a little further analysis on this, try to find some of the data that the board members asked for, and keep this either at the next meeting or the meeting after for continued conversation.
Great. Alrighty, our next agenda item is discussion of personnel policies, the town charter, and bylaw amendments.
So this
Not
one-
much there.
Not much there. It's not as verbose as item 9 that you pointed out before the meeting, Tim. But this is another one that is really a conversation starter tonight. And we talked about this with Labor Council, Kate Federoff, a couple of months ago when she was in. And so the kind of the direction that we got that night was start to look at the personnel bylaw and related components and start to put together a set of changes that we could include on the town meeting. So the personnel system that we have in place originates in the charter and in chapter 68 of the town bylaws, the town code. The practice on the ground doesn't match what is written in the charter and in the bylaws. And so what Kate has put together for us, and that's in the information that I handed out tonight with the red number 6 at the top, and there are 4 documents in there for the board to review. And again, I'm not expecting the board to review this on the fly tonight and make any decisions, but just more to tell us if we're going in the right direction or not. The first one would be a new bylaw or a replacement of Chapter 68 of the code. Chapter 68 now is fairly voluminous and again, doesn't really match what happens on the ground, what has been happening for the last, who knows, 20, 30, 40 years. The combination of the charter and I will say there are 2 charter documents in this. One is a full revision of the charter, or a red line version of the charter, and that's this document. It's at the bottom of that pack. And then there's a shorter one, just a 1-pager or a half-pager, that would be sufficient to bring to town meeting. That would, the big thing would be it would eliminate any references to a personnel board. Personnel boards were They were sort of a carryover of the civil service era, and in lieu of civil service or public sector unions, there was a personnel board that would be sort of the arbiter. I don't know if we ever had a personnel board in Middleton. It's been a long, long time if we did. It has been officially by default the Board of Selectmen. In reality, it's been the town administrators over the years that have held those, carried out those functions. So what Kate has put together is a modification to both the charter and the bylaws, the bylaw that would eliminate the personnel board, put that authority officially in the hands of the Board of Selectmen, but the de facto or the actual responsibility would fall to the town administrator. And then it would also change some of the appointing authority as well. Some of the bigger things she has highlighted in yellow to draw your attention. And we've also included, Tanya has been working for a couple of actually, almost since you walked through the door, on an employee handbook, and she's been working with Belinda Young and Cassandra Murphy and Katrina O'Leary on this, and what we've included, and pay no attention to the parts on the right-hand side where it says error bookmark not defined. That's just a, when
Table
you
of contents.
print from
utilities, yeah.
that, but a table of contents for an employee handbook, just so you can see what we're dealing with or what we're proposing to put forth. And this is close to done, and I'll have Tanya talk about that. And so if we go forward at town meeting with these changes, really the bylaw and the charter would change, and then the employee handbook would come into play, and the new bylaw would be, allow us to be more nimble, as Kate talked about before, the need to be flexible and nimble as things change quite quickly now compared to how they used to. But do you want to talk a little about the employee handbook?
Yeah, we've been working on that. I would say it's about 80% done at this point in time. You know, a few of the things that need to get done are a couple of policy questions that we think would be best practices. So we're working collectively internally to do that. But it's probably about 70 or so pages long, pretty comprehensive, you know, includes, you know, best practices from all of these different areas, include state law, federal law, making sure that's all covered. We're trying to update it as to what our practices currently are, as well as a few areas include new policies in there, which we've never officially covered in the past. So in essence, this would become the personnel policies of the town, which would be much more easy to amend as we go forward, working in conjunction with the Board of Selectmen. So I'm personally very excited to get this put into place so that we can just do a better job communicating with employees and being, you know, making sure that we're following the law as well as, you know, treating people fairly and not arbitrarily. So.
So is this going to also crosswalk over to certain employees due to contractual union agreements that may have? So is this going to be, you know, a handbook for an employee at the police department, which will be different than a handbook for a firefighter?
We're not going to do them individually. What this is going to reference is that at times, a collective bargaining agreement might supersede what's in here, but we're also, since we have an opportunity, since we're about to negotiate 4 different contracts, we're going to do our best to bring those into harmony, knowing that sometimes the CBA might be different than what's in here, but it references the fact that that would trump that.
The only other question I have is on the, and I know we're not going to go through this tonight, but on the sections within the charter that are actually highlighted with edits, are we going to put some time on the calendar on a meeting to actually walk through each of those sections and kind of the rationale?
Yeah,
of why?
yeah, that would,
Because I would expect the expectation that you and Tanya have here is you'd like to see this as a warrant article for town meeting that will petition our legislators to actually file a home rule petition.
Correct, yeah, so there'd be the change, really two components to it. There'd be the change to the bylaw and the adoption of the home rule charter change.
Okay.
But yeah, we can certainly go through those changes one by one. And, at this point, always have to be careful about looking into the future, but there's not a lot on the next agenda, I don't think, so the next meeting might be an appropriate time to do that, where we can spend a little time and make sure that there's a level of comfort. So, and again, the goal through this process has been to match what the practice has been over the years.
Great. Anyone else?
No, sir.
Alrighty. Our next agenda item is to review and vote to approve policy for gifts and donations to the future Community Center Senior Center.
So this came out of I think it was the last meeting, where we received a gift from a developer, or a contribution from a developer for the, that would go towards the future community center, senior center, and the board asked that we put together some guidelines. We kind of modeled it on the veterans donations and gifts account that we adopted late last spring, I think it was. So we tried to be simple and not overly complicate these things. The numbers that we chose, the donations valued at less than 500 can be accepted without board action. Donations more than 500 shall be accepted by the board. That really just follows our general gift and donation policy. And then the other component at the end of that, expenditures under 5,000 may be approved by the town administrator, expenditures above 5,000 approved in advance by the Board of Selectmen. So there's no particular science to that. So those are, they seemed reasonable as we were working through this. If there's a desire to pick a different dollar amount, then there's no offense will be taken there. But that's just really kind of to lay out a process for accepting the gifts and then distributing or using the collected funds.
Does the board feel comfortable voting at this time, or does anybody need more time? or-
I do.
That's good.
I'm fine.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to vote to approve a policy for gifts and donations to the community center/senior center.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passed unanimously.
That was me.
Our next agenda item is to review and vote to approve the revised buy recycle policy.
So we've had a buy recycled policy in town for a number of years. This came up, it looks like it was adopted in 1998, or last revised in 1998. Came up in our conversation last week with DEP as we were talking about solid waste and the ability to qualify for some of the grants that are out there. They asked us to take another look at the policy. What we had was a little bit lean, and so we looked at what some other communities are doing. What we will do is, once this is adopted, whether it's in this form or amended, we'll send that out and we'll distribute that annually to the boards, to boards, committees, and departments, to make sure that we're annually encouraging the acquisition of buy recycled products. And that will help us in our pursuit of grants through DEP.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the amended buy recycled policy.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, do I have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passed unanimously. Our next agenda item is to review and vote to approve a corporate matching donation from the Brevity Fund to the Middleton Food Pantry in the amount of $1,100. This is an annual donation. Do I have a motion on this? And make it quick.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve, brevity, I get it. I move that we approve with thanks the $1,100 donation from the Brevity Fund to be deposited
Autocorrect.
into the food bank account.
And I will, ruins the joke. I think autocorrect.
It's the Benevity Fund.
Benevity Fund,
It's
so.
not funny anymore.
It's
yeah.
Benevity.
So I would amend my motion to approve with thanks the donation of $1,100 from the Benevity Fund.
Okay, with that quick correction, we'll take, so do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Passes unanimously. Our next agenda item is to review groundwater protection overlay district zoning bylaw amendment from the planning board and refer it to the planning board for public hearing and recommendation.
This came out of the conversations we've had with DEP and Danvers about the renewal of our Water Management Act permit. We don't currently have any protections in place for the, what's called the Zone 2, or the areas that directly contribute to a groundwater protection source. There's only one groundwater protection area in Middleton that's right on the town line at Danvers along the Ipswich River. Runs up a little bit, well, there's a map in the packet, runs up Log Bridge Road and also down River Street to some degree. So it's something that if we had our own water supply, we would have had this in place probably 20 or 25 years ago. So a little bit of catch-up, but really all we're asking for the board to do tonight is to refer this to the planning board.
Where is this overlay going to overlay? I don't know if there was a.
There's a map.
There's a map at the
Oh, there
very
is a
last
map.
page.
The last one?
And, you know, are the parameters or the edges of the district determined by scientific things?
Yeah, so it's based on science, based on soil type, and so there's, basically, it's the, where you go from a sand and gravel deposit into something that is less permeable. That's the limits of the Zone 2 or the groundwater protection district. So it's not, doesn't follow nicely along property lines or 1,000 feet back from the center line of Route 114 or anything like that. It's a scientifically driven boundary.
Did I read that this was to go in harmony with others that we have in town, like with our own water supply? Do we have?
Well, this certainly benefits us because the water that comes out of the Danvers wells can become part of our water supply as well.
Great.
Those two wells are currently off, I believe they're still offline, but they are actively licensed.
Okay, do I have a motion to refer it to the planning board?
So moved.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? All righty. New business, anybody with new business?
One thing at the last, Masco School Committee meeting, the committee asked its policy subcommittee to, engage in some conversation with town officials on possible, modifications to the district agreement. And they would be seeking a FinCom and Selectmen representative from each town for that discussion. The FinCom at its meeting last night, designated John Erickson as, its representative. So I would ask that one of us be appointed.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we nominate Costa Pantakis as the representative of the Middleton Board of Selectmen to the committee being organized at Masconomet for discussion on the regional contract.
Second that? We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. All righty, any other new business? One thing I'd like to say is, we did get a post, a little late, but about a blood drive on last Sunday. And, you know, I happened to see it out there and stop by just thinking that, oh, the poor people, they won't have anybody there. And I just want to say, what a great job by Magical Beginnings and the people of Middleton. It was mobbed. They had plenty of donors. I had people in waiting. It was just a wonderful event. It just shows you why it's great to live in a town like Middleton. But I just want to thank everybody that gave and everybody that volunteered. Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned.